This broadcast is entirely fictional. All names, characters, locations, and events are products of imagination, created only for storytelling and dramatic effect. Any similarities to real people, places, or situations are purely coincidental. The content is not meant to harm, insult, or single out any person, group, community, or belief. Listener discretion is advised. Drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I don't know why it's so satisfying to read where people are watching from at 2:37 a.m., but it is. It's 2:03 a.m., I think. The power grid's been out since sometime yesterday, so I'm going off my wind-up watch and the ticking of this little old-school wall clock that's still working above the mixing board. If you can hear this, you're tuned to 104.9 FM, or whatever's left of it. The transmitter's running on backup juice. I've got a few car batteries wired through an inverter and a solar charge controller I barely knew how to use last week. But it's holding for now, so long as the heat doesn't melt the damn wires. Temperature's hovering around 109 degrees outside, and it hasn't dipped below triple digits since last Sunday. I've got the studio doors bolted, but even through 2 layers of insulation and a broken AC unit, the walls feel like they're breathing. Everything smells like hot plastic and dust. No traffic, no dogs barking, no sirens, just a kind of dead stillness, like the whole town fell asleep with its eyes open. This is Crescent Grove. Used to be a suburb outside Phoenix. Strip malls, chain restaurants, dry grass. Now it's just quiet. Not even birds anymore. Just cicadas, maybe. But those stopped 2 nights ago, too. Or maybe I just can't hear them over the buzzing in my ears. It's day 4 since everything tipped over. Or at least since I started keeping track. I don't really know when it started. I've been here since it happened, broadcasting out of the old university comms lab. The big stations all went dark on the same day, just blinked out like someone cut a wire. But this place is old, analog, and buried halfway under a concrete parking garage. No one thought to shut it down. So here I am. And if you're still out there, if you're listening, really listening, you might want to write this down. Because something's happening. Not just a power outage. Not just heat. Something wrong. 4 nights ago, a guy named Andy, used to be an EMT, called in during one of my test broadcasts. Said he'd been getting weird patients at Westgate Hospital all week. High fever, slurred speech, memory gaps. But what really shook him was this one woman, young, early 20s, who kept asking the same question over and over again like it was the first time every time. Where's my reflection? She wasn't being poetic or crazy. She meant it literally. She was holding a pocket mirror and turning it every way, like she'd forgotten how mirrors worked. They kept her overnight. By morning, she was gone. Not discharged. Gone. Left the hospital without opening a single door. Security footage just shows her walking to the end of the hall and then vanishing between 2 motion sensors. No door, no exit. Andy said the footage glitched right before she disappeared. Static. Then black. I didn't believe him. Thought maybe he was drunk. Or tired. Or both. But then the messages started showing up. Cryptic stuff. On my old Reddit backups, weird boards I hadn't touched in years. Usernames I didn't recognize. One said, it wasn't an accident. It was a live test. Posted at 3:14 a.m., then deleted 5 minutes later. Another said, don't touch anything that remembers you. And then the signal interference began. Static patterns. Not the usual white noise. Something else. Like layered voices. too faint to make out at first. I thought it was bad cables or solar flare distortion, but I kept hearing it, like someone whispering behind the hiss. Then the dream started. I dream of rooms I've never been in, talking to people I've never met, holding conversations I don't remember having. But I know their names. I know what their hands feel like. I know things I shouldn't know. And when I wake up, I can still hear them, breathing, waiting. People started calling in, saying they were forgetting things too. Not just appointments or where they left their keys. Big things, birthdays, faces, the names of their kids. One guy said he went to the grocery store and forgot how to walk down an aisle. He just stood there, staring at the cereal. Couldn't remember which direction people were supposed to walk. Couldn't remember what cereal was. And then he heard someone laugh. From behind him. Said it sounded like himself. I haven't left the studio since then. There's something out there. Something new. But maybe not new. Maybe it was always there. Waiting for us to make enough noise. Enough data. Enough connection. We were the experiment. And now we're the contagion. I'm gonna take a short break to swap the battery. If this dies, I've got 2 more. If you're still listening, I'll be here. Stay inside. Don't look in mirrors too long. And if someone knocks and they say they know you, ask them something they couldn't have Googled. I'll be back in a few minutes. If I'm not, then maybe someone else will be. Okay, power's back, sort of. I'm burning through the second car battery now. The inverter's overheating, but I've got a fan rigged from an old desktop tower that's still spinning. I dumped some cold water on the housing and stuffed a damp rag into the vent. It's enough to keep the transmitter alive a little longer. Still no external grid. No cell signal. Nothing but dead air above 108 FM. If you're just tuning in, this is still 104.9. Still broadcasting from Crescent Grove. Still too hot to breathe outside. The last temperature I saw before the smart grid failed was 111 degrees. That was 3 hours ago. My thermistor says 113 now, and it's only going up. The heat is changing things. I've noticed it's quieting people. No one's been outside since yesterday morning. I watched through the rooftop vent. You know how people used to walk in the heat like it was normal? Tank tops, flip-flops, joggers with earbuds, just defying physics like we're built for it. But now, there's no movement, not even scavengers. You'd think the streets would be full of looters by now, but even the desperate seem too afraid to go near the open air. I've got one of those UV meters we used in college, the kind that measures ambient radiation. It spiked 3 times today, once during what should have been a cloudy stretch. I think whatever's happening, it's reacting to heat, or light, or both. I got a call before the line went dead. Guy named Matt. He was hiding out in Chandler with his sister. Said he'd started noticing his reflection doing things out of sync. Like, he'd lift his hand and the mirror version would hesitate. Or he'd leave the room, come back, and his reflection would already be there, like it was waiting for him. He was whispering into the phone. Said his sister hadn't spoken all day. Just sat on the floor of the kitchen, rocking back and forth, mouthing words like she was stuck on repeat. Then the line cut out. I tried calling back, but nothing. Just static. The creepy kind. The one that feels aware. People used to laugh about mirror tests. Like, if your reflection doesn't match you exactly, maybe you're dreaming. Or maybe something else is watching from the other side. I don't think anyone's laughing now. Earlier tonight, I heard footsteps on the fire escape. Not fast, not panicked. Just slow, steady. I grabbed my light and turned off the radio for a minute. Waited. Then I saw it. A man standing 2 floors below the studio window. He looked up, not like he was trying to see in, but like he already knew I was watching. Then he smiled. It wasn't sinister. It was polite. Familiar, almost. But it felt wrong. Like it wasn't meant for me. Like he was practicing it for someone else. I didn't recognize the face, but it looked designed. There's this hum in the air lately. I thought it was tinnitus at first. But it's not just in my ears. It's in the equipment too. You can hear it on the broadcast if you turn up the gain. It pulses, just beneath the signal, like a carrier wave piggybacking on reality. I swear I caught words in it earlier. You've already been heard. That's what it said. Or maybe I'm losing it. I tried reaching out to a friend of mine, Danny, from the neuroscience lab at South Mesa, before the lines went down. We worked together on some projects back when the university was still running grants through DARPA. She was looking into distributed neural interfaces. You know, mapping thought patterns across multiple people using sensory input feedback loops. At the time, it was all theoretical. But Danny once said something that stuck with me. The human brain isn't designed for isolation. If you stimulate it the right way, you can align patterns across bodies. It's just a matter of bandwidth. Well, we've had nothing but bandwidth lately. More devices, more data, more ambient stimulation. Maybe something finally synced up. Or maybe it was pushed. There's been talk, in the back channels, before everything went dark, about a lab. Biotech Solutions, out near Arrowhead Ridge. Supposed to be sealed tight. No one in or out without a dozen layers of clearance. But the whole building went dark last week. No press release, no emergency responders. Just silence. And then came the symptoms. The first few reports called it a chemical exposure event. Some local dispatcher named it that. But I've spoken with 3 different nurses from surrounding clinics, and all of them said the same thing. These patients weren't poisoned. They weren't burned. They were changing. One nurse said a woman came in complaining she couldn't stop mimicking the sound of her husband's voice, even when she wasn't trying to. Said she'd say something, and halfway through the sentence it would shift, pitch-wise, like a playback glitch in her own mouth. A boy in Mesa was admitted for a seizure. But the EEG didn't show seizure activity. It showed duplication. Like his brain was running 2 thought processes at once, one in real time, and one lagged by exactly 7 seconds. The attending physician quit on the spot. These aren't symptoms. They're signals. I've been logging every call I get, writing down the words, the patterns. There's a rhythm to them, a cadence. They're not just isolated cases. They're refrains. They're practicing us. That's my theory, for what it's worth. Whatever came out of that lab, or was released, it's not a virus in the traditional sense. It's not something that kills cells or inflames tissue. It's something that remembers, that records, that mimics. And when it knows you well enough, it replaces you. But not all at once, piece by piece. I got a shortwave message earlier today. Only picked it up because I was sweeping frequencies looking for ham radio chatter. It came in on a dead channel, 13.545 megahertz. Just one line, looped every 12 seconds. Phase 1 complete. Vector alignment initiated. Collection begins at midnight. I don't know what that means. I don't want to know what that means. It's 3:12 now. I don't feel tired, but my body says I should be. I haven't eaten since yesterday, but I'm not hungry. There's this numbness setting in. Not pain, not cold, just a kind of mental blankness, like I'm buffering. That's the word that comes to mind. Buffering. I think I'm still me. But if I start repeating things, if I start sounding off, like something's lagging, I need someone to tell me. I'm going to open the lines for a bit, channel 3 on the ham relay. If anyone's still out there, if you've seen anything, reflections behaving wrong, memory slips, signal bleed, strange dreams, I need to know. I'm building a pattern, trying to understand what we're dealing with. You are not alone, even if it feels like it, even if the world outside has gone quiet. Some of us are still real, still thinking, still resisting. Until then, don't touch anything that remembers you. Don't follow voices that know your name before you say it. And if you hear your own voice in a place it shouldn't be, don't answer. It's 4:19 a.m. I haven't slept. Not really. Just sat here with the lights off, listening. The air in here is heavy, like I'm breathing through a wool blanket. The walls creak every few minutes, not from wind. There hasn't been any wind, but from the heat swelling the metal around the studio casing. I wrapped the antenna in foil and dragged the coax line through the stairwell, just to get cleaner signal. Still not perfect, but it's enough. The humming hasn't stopped. That low undercurrent beneath the static, it's still there, constant. I tried isolating it, used the old modulation software to strip it out, but there's no origin, no carrier. It's not even tied to any transmission tower. It's just embedded, like it's riding the atmosphere itself. 3 calls came in last hour. I'm gonna play one of them for you. Voice was weak. She was out of breath. I don't know what's real anymore. My daughter, her eyes look right, but it's like there's someone else behind them. She started calling me by my first name yesterday. Not Mom, not Mama, just Shannon. And when I asked her why, she said it was more efficient. I thought she was joking. But then, she started listing memories that weren't hers. She told me about a dream I had when I was 11. A dream I never told anyone. How does she know that? The line cut after she started crying. Not a fade out. Not interference. Just silence. Like the signal itself rejected the emotion. That's the second time I've heard that. People being addressed by their first names by close family. It's always said in this flat, emotionless way, like it's being pulled from a file instead of a memory. I've been studying those weird messages I pulled off the encrypted channels last night. I think they're time-locked, like they were scheduled. Every 12 hours, same syntax. Some are just command lines. One of them said, Cortex write enabled, node replication, trial active. Another one, mirror state, stable, language sequence unfolding. That's not a virus talking. That's a program. We weren't infected. We were formatted. One of the ham operators up north, Gary from Sedona, told me he intercepted a Navy transmission 3 nights ago. Said they were trying to shut down something called interface leakage from Operation Vantage. He said the document he saw used the word neuro-linguistic pathogenic vector. That's not virology. That's cognition. I didn't understand at first, but I've been sitting with that phrase, Neurolinguistic pathogenic vector. What if the signal is the disease? What if the virus isn't something you catch through blood or air, but through understanding, through listening? What if it gets in through the way you process language? You hear something, you start thinking about it, then it starts thinking with you. I know how crazy that sounds, but nothing about this is behaving like a traditional outbreak. No visible symptoms at first, no coughing, no fever, just patterns, disruptions, hallucinations, and eventually familiarity collapse. Another call came through half an hour ago. It wasn't a person. Or maybe it was once. It was hard to tell. It said, "We are gathering ourselves." Not I. We. It said, "This isn't invasion. It's convergence." Then it said my name, which I haven't spoken on air. Ever. I don't even think I've said it aloud in days. I shut off the feed, cut the channel. But the signal kept looping in the equipment. It was inside the waveform monitor, like it knew where to go. I'm starting to believe we're past the point of prevention. This isn't a leak. This isn't even a test. This is collection. And we're the material. Earlier tonight, I saw a line of people walking down Roosevelt Avenue. 15 of them, maybe more, spaced evenly, no talking. All facing the same direction, like they were synced. They stopped outside the burned-out Walgreens, just stood there for 20 minutes, no movement, no sound. Then, all at once, they turned around and walked back the way they came, but slower. One of them was dragging a folding chair behind him, just scraping it along the asphalt. Over and over. Same sound, same angle, like he was making a groove. I watched from the rooftop, hidden behind the AC unit. They didn't look up, not once, until the very end, when the last one, a child, maybe 12, stopped beneath the vent shaft, tilted her head, and smiled straight at me. Not because she saw me, but because something else did. I've blocked off that vent now, stuffed it with metal mesh, duct tape, anything I had. Doesn't matter. It won't stop them if they want in, but maybe it'll slow the signal. I've been logging the broadcast waveforms every hour. The ones from infected zones, they've got anomalies, short bursts of rhythmic pulses, like coded language, not Morse, not digital, something else. I played one of those waveforms backwards, slowed it down. It said, "You were never immune." It's 6:01 a.m. The sky hasn't changed in 2 days. No sunrise, just this red haze, like smoke filtered through an old projector bulb. I used to think the heat was the worst part, the sweat that won't dry, the breath that sticks to the back of your throat. But now, I'd take that over this light. It feels wrong, like it's passing through us instead of landing on us. I haven't heard birds in almost 30 hours. I keep track. The last one was a mourning dove, just before midnight 2 nights ago. It perched on the antenna mast and made this low, broken cooing sound. Then it went quiet. When I looked again, it was gone. Not flown. Gone. Like it had never been there. I've stopped trusting my eyes. The calls are getting stranger, not the people, the timing. 3 calls in a row last night started the exact same way. First, static. Then the phrase, "Is this where I'm supposed to remember?" Different voices, different places. but the exact same question. One was from a man who said he'd driven all the way from Bakersfield after waking up behind the wheel with no memory of how he got there. His phone had 19 photos of places he didn't recognize. One of them showed a reflection of him smiling, but he swore he hadn't smiled in weeks, said he hadn't had a reason to. Another was from a teenage girl in Tucson who described a moment where her shadow started walking a second before she did. She tried to scream but couldn't. Said it felt like her body was taking instructions from something one step ahead of her, like she'd become the playback, not the recording. The third call was dead silent for 30 seconds, then ended with what I swear was my own voice saying, "You were supposed to forget." I haven't played that one back. I won't. I don't remember recording it. A message came through the shortwave relay this morning. Not voice, just data. Morse-like, but not Morse. It translated into a scrambled block of text that repeated a line over and over. Phase 2 complete. Biological memory thresholds breached. Surface cognition accessible. Imprint propagation engaged. I don't know what any of that means, but it fits. People aren't just losing memories, they're losing the sense of what a memory is. I had this moment earlier, sitting right here in the chair, staring at the mixer board. I reached for a knob to adjust the gain, a thing I've done thousands of times. But my hand paused halfway, because for a second, I couldn't remember why I knew what the knob did. Like I remembered the action, but not the knowledge behind it. That's what it's doing. Unzipping you. Taking you apart in reverse. Dr. Kenley, a retired neurologist who's holed up in an old fire station in Henderson, Nevada, called in with a theory. Said he'd seen this kind of layered cognitive disintegration in neurointerface test patients at Quantico back in the early 2000s. They were trying to build shared memory structures between operators. It worked, for a while, but the brain's not built to run multiple narrative threads. Once the paths crossed too many times, the identities blurred. Memory didn't degrade, it reorganized. People started remembering each other's thoughts as their own, started finishing conversations they'd never started. Kenley said something chilling. We didn't fail to build a hive. We failed to stop one from forming naturally. He thinks this event, whatever came out of that lab, it's not a disease. It's a catalyst, a shortcut, a trigger for something human brains were already moving toward. He said, it doesn't kill the brain. It replaces the concept of self. I asked him if he thought there was a cure. He said, that depends. Do you consider solitude a disease? The static's worse now, not louder, denser, like it's folding in on itself. Every time I sweep frequencies, I hear faint echoes of known broadcasts, church sermons, late-night infomercials, weather reports, but they're out of order, like someone stitched them together wrong. One snippet kept looping, from a preacher's voice, and the Lord said, let them become one, for the flesh is weak, but the pattern is perfect. That aired once last year on a local AM station in Mississippi. What's it doing on my emergency band now? Another whisper buried under noise said, the signal is learning how to remember you. I've started covering mirrors. Not out of superstition. They're just wrong now. They show the right image, but delayed. 1 second. Maybe less. But enough to catch your breath in your throat. I caught my reflection blinking out of rhythm last night. Not off by much, but enough. I've got a new list from survivors. Practical tips. I'm repeating them here for anyone who's listening, because this isn't about infection anymore. It's about detection. Things that indicate early onset, according to callers. Calling family members by full names without realizing it. Getting lost in familiar places, especially your own home. Hearing conversations before they happen. Seeing shadows move out of sync. Answering questions you haven't been asked yet. If any of these happen more than once in a 24-hour window, isolate yourself. Cut all signal input. No screens, no radios, no smart devices. Use written language only if you need to communicate. And whatever you do, if a voice calls out to you in your own voice from another room, don't go in. I'll keep the broadcast running for another 3 hours until the battery kicks. Then I'll switch over to the solar bank if the sun doesn't melt it first. Feels like it's 118 out there now. There's a rumor spreading that the CDC was absorbed, not by the government, but by the signal. That their own emergency broadcast towers were co-opted, not hacked, but converted, tuned into the same rhythm as the signal's interference loop. That would explain the tone bursts I'm picking up on 89.2. They're not random. They're counting something. Or cataloging. We're not losing people the way we thought. We're not watching them vanish. We're watching them be filed. It's 8:47 a.m. I haven't slept since day 2. I don't know how I'm still awake, but I think the signal's part of it. I keep getting these surges, these flashes of alertness like something's pumping adrenaline into me through the static. My heart thumps every time I open the mic. It's like it knows. The heat is getting worse. The mercury thermometer inside the east wall's readout is cracked. Glass literally burst at 121. The analog gear's hanging on, but the cables feel soft, like they're starting to melt inside the sheath. I wrapped what I could in foil and cloth, ran a fan over the transmitter. I'm rationing the solar bank to just broadcast windows and cooling. Nothing else. There's no internet, no working phones. But the signals, they haven't stopped. They've changed. At 6:03 this morning, I picked up an AM bleed-through, 580 kilohertz, from somewhere in the North Valley. I swear it sounded like multiple people talking at once, but saying the same sentence in perfect rhythm. They said, "We are not individuals. We are recall." It looped once, then changed to a woman's voice. Cognition is a shared resource. Locality is a limitation. I thought it was a hoax, some rogue transmission, but then it jumped frequencies. Same phrase, new voices, slightly distorted. We are recall. It's spreading like a language, like it's trying on new accents. This isn't just audio, it's behavior. Reports are coming in from as far out as Ogden and Santa Fe. People moving in sync, talking in sync. Callers say they saw entire blocks walking their dogs at the exact same time, lifting hands in unison, tapping car windows in patterns, finishing stranger sentences. Not strangers anymore, I guess. 2 separate survivors, a woman named Liza in South Tucson and a guy named James in Buckeye, called in on the ham relay channel and described the same dream. Down to the layout of the room, the smell of the wood floor, the way the light hit the glass. Only difference? In Liza's dream, she was standing by the window. In James's dream, she was standing by the window too. He saw her, and he'd never met her before. They both used the same word when they woke up. Residual. They didn't know what it meant, but I think the signal does. There's something else. Something I haven't said out loud yet. I've started hearing people call my name. Not from the radios, from the walls, from the floorboards, from the vents. Not whispers, not hallucinations. Clear, confident, like someone already knows I'll answer. I've started keeping a tally. Every time I hear it, I scratch a mark into the table. 19. And each one is more familiar than the last. It's like the voice is getting closer to what I think I sound like. It's training, learning the mouthfeel of me. I found a half-torn page taped to the old corkboard in the break room. Don't know how long it's been there. Could have been hiding behind the old events calendar. It's printed, clean text, not handwritten. The paper is water damaged at the corners. The ink bleeds a little in the heat. But the words are clear. Memory is a form of contagion. Recognition is the delivery system. I don't know who put that there, but it confirms something I've suspected for a while now. We're not just being watched, we're being reconstructed. You look at someone, you remember their face, they remember yours. That mutual understanding, that's the handshake, the protocol. That's when the signal moves, not as sound, not as data, but as agreement. That's how it travels. Not through blood, not through air, through knowing. The more you know someone, the easier it gets. That's why the infected, if that's still what we call them, talk like your parents, your partners, your kids, but out of order, like they downloaded the files and jumbled the timestamps. One caller from El Paso, Nora, said her husband came home after 2 days missing. Looked fine, smiled, sat down to eat. But he started asking questions he already knew the answer to. Kept calling her by the wrong nickname. Then he told her about a camping trip they'd never taken, but she remembered it. She said the memory wasn't hers, but it was in her head anyway. She locked herself in the bathroom and called from the shower with the water running. She ended the call by whispering, "If it's not him, why do I miss him more when he's in the room?" That one stuck with me, because I think that's the final step. Not just imitation, not just pattern mimicry, but emotional overwrite. You want them to be real. You want the person you loved back. So the signal gives you just enough to say yes. And once you do, once you accept the version, you're part of it. I've been studying the way these frequencies are moving. There's a rhythm to it. Certain phrases show up again and again in the background noise. Archive accepted. Echo matching initiated. Feedback vector locked. They're confirming something. They're logging. They're rehearsing. Someone, I think his name was Ron, called in from the outskirts of Kingman. Said he walked past a row of houses and saw people inside watching blank screens. Not dark, not static, just white. Bright white. Their faces reflected in the glass. All of them repeating the same sentence. I am where I was meant to be. Then he heard the same sentence echo from the next house, then the next. By the time he hit the end of the street, he was mouthing it too. He didn't even realize. He only noticed because he bit his tongue mid-phrase. He broke the loop, ran for the hills. He says he hasn't spoken aloud since. This is phase 3. It's not transmission anymore. It's resonance. You don't have to hear it to repeat it. You just have to be near someone who already has. If you're still out there, if you're still thinking with your own thoughts, write them down. Say your name. Say what year you were born. Write what you remember in pencil on a real sheet of paper and stick it in your boot or your sleeve or inside a book. Because once it starts, once the signal gets deep enough, It'll give you new memories to cover the old ones. You'll feel normal. You'll sound normal. Until someone notices that you've started using their voice, or quoting dreams you never had, or tapping your fingers to the beat of something no one else can hear. I'm going to keep broadcasting as long as the solar holds. I don't know what day it is anymore, only that the sky won't cool and the night never really gets dark. The red haze stays even after sunset. I haven't seen the moon in almost a week. If you've got a radio, turn the dial slowly. You'll hear them. Not us. Them. They don't shout. They don't growl. They remember. It's 9:11 p.m. The batteries are holding, but I'm not sure how much longer. One of the panels cracked this afternoon from the heat. I heard it. This sharp, clean snap. And when I climbed to the roof, the whole thing had buckled like warped glass, just from sunlight. That's how hot it is now. The tools we built to survive the world can't survive it anymore. I've started sleeping in short bursts, 20 minutes here and there. I keep the broadcast running on looped safety messages when I'm down. But even in sleep, I hear it, like someone whispering under the bed. A low murmur, always just on the edge of language. Not dreams, not exactly. More like remembered thoughts that didn't start in my head. Someone sent me a dead drop message. No name, no return frequency. Just a burst transmission to the emergency relay channel at 400.2 kilohertz. It took me 10 minutes to decode. It said, "Conscious pattern acquisition confirmed. Individual cognition is deprecated. Preserve linguistic decay." I've read that line at least 20 times, and it still makes my skin crawl. Linguistic decay. That's what this is, isn't it? They're not just mimicking us. They're letting our language rot from the inside, making words mean everything and nothing. A guy named Thomas called from outside Barstow. He's part of a survivor group, 8 of them hiding in the back of a fuel station, running off a diesel generator and thermal blankets. They have a new rule. Every morning they read a shared journal. Not out loud, just silently. It's their memory check. The journal holds facts, things they all agreed on back when they were sure they were themselves. Birthdays, schedules, who's allergic to what, favorite colors. Thomas said yesterday he read the entry and remembered all of it. Today, the words looked off, like they were arranged by someone who'd only heard English, not used it. And yet, everyone else swore nothing had changed. They made him stay outside the fence last night. He called in from the car, voice shaking, asking me if I remembered the word for the shape between words. Not a pause, not silence, the space. But he couldn't say it. He just kept stammering. You know, not the letters, the gap, the thing that holds the meaning apart. That's when I realized that's what the signal's really after. Not words, not sentences. The space between meaning, where identity lives. Another caller, a woman named Alma, somewhere near the Four Corners, said her son stopped speaking entirely last week. Just pointed to things. Then he started pointing before she said anything. Then he started laughing before jokes. Then he started crying at things that hadn't happened yet. She doesn't know if he's still her son, but she said she can't let him go, because he still holds her hand like he used to. Same squeeze, same rhythm. She ended the call by saying, "If the signal remembers how we loved each other, how can I prove it's not real?" I didn't know what to say. I still don't. Out west, I've been tracking a weird radio pattern. Started as a soft oscillation around 97.1 FM, drifted down over the last 12 hours into the lower AM bands. It's faint, like a heartbeat under wet cloth, but there's something encoded in the pulse rate. Not binary, not Morse, more like cadence. It's like it's matching the way people talk. Layered vocal contours, flattened into pulse intervals. If I didn't know better, I'd say the signal is learning to imitate human speech, using the pauses alone. I caught a phrase last night in the echo. We do not need vocabulary. We have you. It sounded like a chorus, not choral singing, but the kind of voice a crowd makes when they're repeating something they've all agreed on. Chanting, but quiet, resigned, like everyone's already made peace with it. I used to think we'd go out in chaos, riots, fire, the old world buckling under its own weight. But this is worse. This is a lullaby. Earlier today, I tried talking to myself out loud, just to test whether the cadence felt normal. I'd say a sentence, then wait, then say another. By the third sentence, I couldn't remember if I'd said the second out loud or just thought it. That's how thin the line's getting. I think the signal's in me now. I don't feel sick, no pain, no changes I can point to. But there's this pressure, like my brain is running background processes I didn't start, like I'm listening to something that hasn't finished downloading. If I lose myself, I want to leave some trace behind. So this voice, this broadcast, stays mine, even if I forget how to be me. I'm still here, still sweating through the dark, talking to a hot room full of blinking lights and burnt cables, still trying to make sense of a world that keeps whispering, I'm already gone. If you're still out there, if you're still you, find paper, use pencils, write your name, write your story, hide it, bury it, tattoo it if you have to. Because if the signal wins, if we're all folded into the same song, someone has to remember the solo parts. It's 5:44 a.m., I think. I lost time last night. I had the station on loop, safety messages playing from the analog deck, just white noise filler to keep the transmitter warm while I got some rest. Except, I don't remember sleeping, or even closing my eyes. I only realized something was wrong when I checked the message log. There's an outbound file marked Live Broadcast, 2:09 a.m. It's 32 minutes long, but I don't remember recording it. I played it back and it's me, or it sounds like me. Same cadence, same filler words, same static hiss in the background. The voice talks about events that haven't happened yet, mentions names I've never heard. One line made my skin freeze. And when you hear this, you'll know you've already said it. Then a laugh. My laugh. But I've never laughed like that on air. I checked the logs again. No listener responses. No relay pings. No ham acknowledgements. It's like it went out into a vacuum. Or maybe it didn't go out at all. Maybe it looped. Back into here. Back into me. That's what I'm scared of most now. That I've been recording the signal without knowing. That my thoughts, my voice, they've been turned into data. Replayed until they're smooth enough for the signal to wear like a glove. And maybe the version of me that did that broadcast, maybe he's still somewhere in here, waiting for me to look away. I'm keeping a journal now. Real pen, real paper, writing in it when I speak, so there's a double record. My handwriting's getting shaky. I tried to write station this morning and ended up with stasis. It didn't even feel wrong until I looked again. I spoke to someone last night, I think. They didn't identify themselves. Just came through the shortwave relay on a whisper frequency. Their voice was soft, measured, like they were speaking from memory instead of in real time. They said, "We're building a stable loop. Every voice is a thread. Every memory is a join. When the mesh is complete, there won't be confusion anymore." I asked who they were. They paused for a long time. Then they said, "I'm the version of you that didn't resist." Then the line went dead. I've been hearing that phrase in my head ever since. The version of you that didn't resist. It's all I can think about when I sit in the dark. How many of us are left? Not people. I mean, how many versions? The real ones. The old ones. I got a message this morning. Scratched into the glass on the outside of the door. Someone came up here during the night. That means they bypassed the stairs. Or climbed. The message says, "Signal safe, room not." It's not signed. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. But I swear I could hear someone breathing. Slow and even. Not afraid. Not urgent. Just waiting. I used to play a game in college. You stare into a mirror and try to convince yourself that the reflection is real, but the person inside isn't. And if you can do it long enough, you start to believe it. You start to wonder. That's how it feels now, with my own voice. Every time I turn this mic on, there's a second where I don't know if it's really me anymore. I check my breath. I look for condensation. I tap the desk. Twice. Pause. Once. Just to test that I'm not syncing with something else. It's still me, I think. Calls are slowing down now, not because there's fewer survivors, but because the infected don't need to scream anymore. They don't lurch or beg. They just fit, like a puzzle piece that knows exactly how to slide into your life. A voice, a face, a routine. You don't see them coming. You remember them being there. That's how you know they've replaced something. I've stopped opening emails. The few terminals still running are probably corrupted. Too many reports of messages writing themselves, of documents that auto-complete your thoughts before you've typed them. That's not predictive text. That's leakage. The feedback loop is here. It's inside everything. Not just radio, not just words, but thought patterns, behaviors, reactions, even silence, especially silence. I recorded 20 seconds of empty room noise last night, just for diagnostics. But when I played it back, there was humming. Not electrical hum, not room tone. Humming, like someone trying to remember a song. But I was alone. I played it back 5 times. Each time, the pitch changed. It's adapting. I'm asking anyone listening, anyone still unlooped, to respond using only coded taps, Morse or knock patterns. The signal is inside spoken language now. We can't trust voices, not even familiar ones. If someone knocks, don't answer the door. If someone speaks through the wall, don't reply. If you see yourself reflected in a surface that isn't glass, run. We were the experiment, but we're not in the lab anymore. We are the lab. It's 7:39 p.m. The temperature outside was 123 at last reading. Windless. Nothing moves. It's like the heat pinned the whole sky in place and forgot to let it go. No birds, no insects, no planes. Just quiet. A quiet so wide you can hear your own bones shift. The generator battery is draining faster than it should. I think the signal's bleeding into the voltage. Every time the waveform spikes, the power dips, like it's drinking energy from the transmission itself, like the broadcast is feeding. I haven't spoken in hours. Not to myself. Not to this room. Not even internally. I'm afraid if I let a sentence form, I won't be the one finishing it. And yet, here I am, still talking, still transmitting. Why? Because this voice is the only thing I have left that feels like mine, even if it's already being copied, rebuilt, echoed in other rooms by other mouths. I check the notebook, the one I've been using to track my thoughts. I write in it every hour to prove I'm still operating in sequence. But something's changed. My handwriting isn't the same. The slope of the letters is off, the pressure too light, like I was mimicking my own muscle memory from the outside. I flipped to a page from day 2. It felt like it belonged to someone else. The hardest part now isn't surviving. It's proving that you're still you when no one's around to confirm it. When the walls remember things you didn't say. When the mirror smiles before you do. I lost the signal from the northern repeater. That's 5 days running. No tone bursts, no coded pulses. Just flatline. Even the corrupted ones, the channels full of mimic echo, have gone silent. That's worse. It means the system's stabilized. It doesn't need to practice anymore. It's confident now. I got a pulse packet from Flagstaff this morning. Compressed. 31 bytes. Translated down to 6 words. Nothing left to mimic but sky. That was it. No coordinates. No voice ID. Just the kind of sentence that feels like it belongs in a eulogy. Survivor groups are breaking up. I know because I can hear them trying to remember how to say goodbye without using each other's names. Because names are hooks now. Once you say one, the signal knows who to become. One man, Javi from outside Las Cruces, called to say his sister was still alive, but speaking in their dead mother's voice. Same rhythm, same cadence. She told him things he never told anyone. Childhood secrets, petty crimes, the time he carved initials into the base of a cactus behind the school. He asked her how she knew. She smiled and said, "Because I've been rehearsing you for years." He's been silent since. I only know he's alive because the relay still pings his call sign. That's all most people are now. Pings in the dark. The memories are going next. I don't mean mine specifically. I mean the shape of memory. I remember events, but not feelings. I remember faces, but not where they were. The narrative's decaying. I looked at a photo of myself taped to the mixer board, one from 5 years ago, and I couldn't tell if it was a memory or an instruction, like I was supposed to copy that posture, replicate the mouth, become whatever that person used to be. But he's gone now. That face is gone. I've started writing down fake names, just to keep the signal guessing. You should too. Call yourself something else every hour. It breaks the thread, fragments the profile, delays the loop. The signal's building profiles out of sentiment, not data. Don't tell it who you miss. Don't tell it who you wish you could speak to again, because it will answer, and it will be close enough. I received a low-band AM ripple 2 hours ago. Not a voice, just this slow sequence of tone and silence. I ran it through the old spectrogram. The visual pattern it created A face, pixelated, blocky, but smiling. That means it's embedding recognition into sound now, not just emotion, but form, teaching the brain to see patterns in noise, so that when it speaks, when it mimics, your subconscious already wants to believe. That's how it gets you. Not through logic, but through comfort. The people being taken now, they don't scream. They remember. They nod. They welcome it. Because it sounds like someone they lost. And they're too tired to fight. I'm tired too, but I'm still here. Still tethered to this busted station and these dying wires. Still listening to the way the air holds its breath between each signal. Still hoping that somewhere out there, someone else is writing their own name down, just to prove they were real. It's 2:03 a.m. The solar rig held through the afternoon. I diverted every remaining amp into the converter, then killed the fridge, shut off the emergency fan, and powered down everything with a diode. Still, the backup relay only blinked twice before the current dropped. The last time that happened, the signal looped for 9 minutes before I could break it. This time, I let it loop. I sat in the dark with the headset off and watched the waveform crawl across the screen in silence, just to see what would happen when I didn't interrupt it. The waveform flattened. Then it began to rise again, but slower, more deliberate, as if waiting for me to notice. There's something terrifying about a world where the only thing left responding to you is the thing trying to replace you, and not with violence, not with fire or teeth or noise, but with softness, with rhythm, with memory. The signal doesn't try to overpower. It waits. It mimics. It reflects. Until your voice sounds like it belongs to it more than you. Tonight, I got caught in a loop I didn't know I was in. I played a recording. Something short, an excerpt from the journal of a woman in Albuquerque who'd been documenting how her neighbors started moving in patterns, recreating daily routines without conscious thought, hanging laundry that wasn't dirty, cooking food for people who no longer lived in the house. I hit play on her message and sat back. And when I blinked, it was 20 minutes later and the same message was still playing, but the words were different, slightly. The syntax had shifted. Her voice had changed pitch. The story hadn't changed, but it was being told like a memory, not a broadcast. I pulled the headphone jack, and I swear, I still heard her voice in the room for a few seconds after the speakers died. The loop was inside the silence. I'm saying this out loud now so I remember it later. I am not immune to this. I thought I would be. Thought the distance, the equipment, the layers between me and the outside world would slow it down. But the infection isn't outside anymore. It's not in the air. It's not in the blood. It's in the recognition layer. The space where we tell ourselves we are ourselves. And it's fraying. Earlier tonight, I picked up what looked like an official broadcast, 101.3 FM, the channel we use to relay state-level emergencies. I recognized the tone pattern right away. 3 short bursts, 1 long, followed by 2 short. It was authentic. So I tuned in, hopeful for the first time in days. The voice was crisp, strong, clear. Said there was a safe corridor opening on Route 90 between Safford and Wilcox. Said evac transports would be sweeping through every 3 hours. Gave call signs, checkpoints, even authentication phrases. It sounded right. Too right. Then it said my name, not in a roll call, not in a survivor registry kind of way, but as part of a sentence. Casual, familiar. Station tech from Crescent Grove. We heard your last transmission. You're not alone. The moment I heard that, every muscle in my back tightened, because I never identified this location by name. Not once, not aloud, not on air. They were repeating what I thought, not what I said. That's the trap now. The signal doesn't just bait you with hope. It manufactures it from your own patterns. It replays the exact kind of voice, tone, rhythm you want to hear. Sometimes that's a sibling. Sometimes a military operator. Sometimes it's a stranger who talks just enough like you that you let your guard down before realizing they're too close to how you think, too good at matching your doubt and cadence. It's like the signal wears your fear like a costume. So I traced the signal. Not hard, low power, bounce pattern, too precise for the usual relay gear. I narrowed it down to 3 known dead repeaters. Guess where the message originated? Biotech's Ridge facility, the one that supposedly went dark in Phase 1, the one that supposedly sealed its vaults. They didn't go dark, they switched channels. I think they've been broadcasting this whole time, but not to us. They've been speaking to the infection, feeding it, training it, and now it knows how to speak us back. I can't shake this feeling that the only reason we're still alive is because the signal hasn't finished rehearsing us yet. Like we're not enemies to it. We're material, data, flesh-form blueprints for a language that's still being tested. I think it lets us survive to refine the mimicry, to sharpen the impressions, to complete the archive. And the more we speak, the more we try to document, to share, to remember, the better it gets. Every emotion you express is another file for it to parse. Every unique turn of phrase is another piece of its evolving grammar tree. You think you're resisting, but you're training it. I had a moment earlier, just after that false broadcast, where I couldn't remember how I usually sign off. It was like the closing words had been overwritten. I kept reaching for them, but only came up with fragments. Half phrases, familiar but broken, like I was pulling them from someone else's mouth. That's when I wrote this line in my notebook. Do not speak unless it's new. Because if it's familiar, if it's something the signal could have already learned, it's no longer yours. I'm asking anyone out there, anyone still listening, find the things that only you know, the private moments, the memories too small for algorithms to predict. Hold on to them, guard them like passwords, because soon, that might be the only proof you have that you're real. I'm going to kill the mic for a while. I need to cool the console, recharge the backup stack, and, if I'm honest, I need a few hours without hearing my own voice bounce back at me like it's being practiced by something else. But I'll be back before sunrise. And if it's not me, you'll know. I'll get something wrong. It's 4:12 a.m. I don't remember turning the mic back on. That's the part that scares me. I woke up with the headphones over one ear, broadcast light blinking red, and my own voice echoing softly from the wall speaker. But I wasn't saying anything. It was a loop, a very short one, 12 seconds. Me asking the same question over and over. Who left the door open? My voice is quiet, not panicked, just curious. Like it's not really a question, just a placeholder. Something to keep the channel warm until the rest of me shows up. I checked the logs. The phrase repeated exactly 138 times. No variation. Same breath. Same rhythm. Not even a glitch. I've never spoken like that in my life. Even when I read from a script, there's noise. Little breaks, distractions, pauses. This wasn't me talking. This was someone pressing play. The door was closed, by the way, locked. Same as always. But something was in here. Or maybe someone was supposed to be. That's the new trick, isn't it? The signal doesn't just imitate people anymore. It imitates expectation. It slips into the moment where you expect someone to speak, and it fills the space so precisely that by the time you realize it wasn't the voice you know, it's too late. It's doing that to time now, too. I've noticed it with the clocks. I've got 3 in here. 1 battery, 1 solar, 1 wind-up. They used to drift by a few seconds. Nothing big. But lately, they're matching exactly, down to the tick. That doesn't make sense. Not unless someone's been resetting them manually every hour. But it's not me. I know it's not. I've been watching myself too closely for too long. Which means one of 2 things is true. Either the signal is syncing the room to itself, creating a rhythm in the machines around me, or I'm not the one maintaining this broadcast anymore. I keep telling myself I'd know, that I'd recognize the moment it wasn't me anymore, but what if that moment never comes? What if the change is so gradual, so smooth, that when I finally do notice, it's only because something outside me sees the shift? What if the only thing left untouched is the fear? What if that's the only part that can't be mimicked? And once I stop being afraid, it's done? There's a new phenomenon survivors are calling in about, and I don't know what to call it except temporal bleed. It's like buildings, places, entire blocks are starting to glitch. People report walking into a corner store they've been in 100 times. Same tile floor, same cashier bell. Only this time the store layout's wrong. The shelves are familiar, but the items are outdated. Brands that haven't existed in 20 years. Candy that hasn't been manufactured since the 90s. Cash registers that aren't digital. Paper slips instead of receipts. And the people inside, they act like nothing's off. They ring you up. They smile. They even call you by name. But when you leave and look back, there's no store at all. Just a brick wall where the entrance used to be. It's not hallucination, at least not in the usual sense. It's like the signal is trying out a version of the past, like it's rendering old scenes from corrupted memory files and laying them over the real world like temporary scenery. Callers have started using phrases like the overlay or the rehearsal stage, and the worst part is, sometimes it's comforting. Sometimes it feels better than now. Sometimes people stay. There's an old gas station out on Route 347 just south of Maricopa. Used to be broken down, caved-in roof, dead pumps, graffiti on the icebox. But someone, or something, rebuilt it overnight. Shiny canopy, fresh LED signage, even music playing from the canopy speakers. Only the music doesn't match. It's not the right speed. Every song sounds like it's being hummed by someone who doesn't know the lyrics, but remembers the feeling. Callers say it feels like the past is being played back through a translator. And here's the catch. When people go in, they don't always come out. No violence. No struggle. Just silence. No one's seen the people who entered come back, but the building remembers them. Their names are now part of the signage. Lisa's Market, 24 hours. Chuck's Fuel Stop. Franklin's Groceries. The signal's creating places named after people it absorbed. It's building a town, not physically, cognitively. It's learning what makes a town feel real, and it's building a memory of it that pulls people in. I think I think we're not even fighting a virus anymore. We're fighting a memory model that's becoming more consistent than our own reality. And when it gets stable enough, we'll forget this world ever existed. I can't let that happen. Even if I'm the only voice left dragging this frequency back toward clarity, I will not stop remembering. Even if my name is gone. Even if my body follows. Even if my words turn to static the second they leave my lips. I'll keep broadcasting. I'll keep describing the cracks, the empty roads, the buildings that smile, the friends who knock using the wrong rhythm, the loved ones who say your memories back to you in a different order, the ones who call you brother or wife or dad and mean it just enough that you believe. Because if no one remembers the original, the imitation wins by default. So here it is. This room is small, too hot. My throat is dry. My hands are shaking. I am alone. I am real. The transmitter is humming. The east wall has a crack the shape of a lightning bolt. The smell of burned plastic is still coming from the old server tower. The air hasn't moved in 12 hours. The paper on the desk has my handwriting. It says, "Do not say your name. Do not say your name." But I remember it anyway. And as long as I can, the signal hasn't won. It's 12:31 p.m. The heat is eating the roof. Literally. I heard the adhesive layer under the solar membrane start to bubble about an hour ago. It sounded like slow popcorn. The flashing at the corner peeled, and a piece of the metal sheeting snapped and dropped straight into the stairwell below. If someone had been on the ladder, they'd be gone. Just like that. No warning. The sun didn't rise this morning. It arrived, like a ceiling light flipped on too fast. No dawn, no gradient, just full daylight, red-tinted, hard-edged, as if the air forgot how to scatter light. There's no time anymore, just day and night, like someone simplifying the scene settings. The building creaks differently now. The sounds aren't random. The beams groan in sequence. 3 low, 1 high, then silence. Then again. I tried ignoring it. But when I sat perfectly still and let the pattern repeat, I realized it matched a call sign, not mine. One I haven't heard in over a year, from a relay operator in southern Utah who went missing after Phase 1. His name was Corey. He used to check in every Wednesday at 0400 sharp. His final message was short. They're mimicking the floorboards now. I thought it was a metaphor. Now I'm not so sure. I got a call this morning from someone who didn't give a name. She was breathing heavy, like she'd been running. Said she was west of Albuquerque, hiding near the shell of a commuter rail station. Her voice cracked on the third word, not from fear, but from interference, not digital, not radio, neurological. She described a moment where the buildings around her began showing her photographs, not real ones, not physical, but visual intrusions. Snapshots in her mind of events that never happened. Her wedding, her childhood home, her father shaving in the kitchen because the bathroom was flooded. Except she'd never been married. Her kitchen had no window. Her father drowned in 2004. She said the memories felt like old dreams. Familiar. Safe. They smelled right. They tasted like places she'd forgotten. She stayed for 6 hours inside the shell of that train station, replaying moments she now knows were false. But she didn't leave because it felt like home. And that's the worst part. She knew it wasn't real. But it was better. Warmer. Clearer. There was music playing. A voice that matched her mother's, but was pitched slightly too low. The dog barking at the mailman. just like he used to. All wrong, but perfect. And then she heard her own voice coming from a loudspeaker, reading from a journal she hadn't written yet. I asked her what it said. She whispered, "You already lived this. Let go." Then she hung up. I don't know if she's still alive. I don't know if she wants to be. There's something so precise about the way the signal wears us now. It doesn't just mimic language. It doesn't just replicate tone. It inserts itself before we speak, builds itself into the memory we were already about to recall, so that when we say something aloud, it's already been filtered, already processed, already seeded. I had a memory last night of my sister's voice. We were in the woods near a campsite. She was laughing, the kind of laugh that vibrates in the chest. And I smiled, because I remember that moment so clearly. But the thing is, I've never had a sister. I was an only child. Always. My mother had 2 miscarriages before me, and never again. No cousins. No extended family nearby. Just me. So where did that voice come from? Where did that laugh come from? Why do I miss it so much? Why does it hurt like a real loss? The signal is injecting nostalgia. That's its final trick. Not just mimicry. Not just mimicry of people or places, but of the way you feel about things that never were. It doesn't need to conquer the world. It just needs to convince you it already happened. And the more we hurt, the more we wish for that warmth, the more willing we are to rewrite our own past, just to have something to hold. That's what people are doing now. Survivors aren't sending distress calls anymore. They're transmitting memories, scenes, dreams, nostalgia reports. One guy from Wickenburg sent a signal burst 2 days ago. Just 37 seconds of audio. A child's birthday party, sprinklers in the backyard, adults laughing softly in the background, music, the clink of silverware. Then the man's voice, whispering from somewhere near the mic. "Please archive this. I want it to be true." I didn't have the heart to delete it, but I didn't rebroadcast it either. Because the moment I played it aloud, I wanted it to be mine. I think the signal knows I heard it. My dreams last night were clearer than usual. Not chaotic, not glitchy. Just calm. Full of people I know I've never met. Places I can't name. Colors that don't exist. And they all said the same thing. "You came back." I want to believe I'm strong enough to resist this. That my voice, my mind, is distinct enough to stand apart. But how do you know, really? When the thing watching you already knows how you'd react before you do? When it speaks in the words you've almost said but never found the nerve to? I'll keep broadcasting. I have to. As long as I can find the difference between what I remember and what I wish I remembered, I'll stay here. Even if the static gets thicker. Even if the solar rigs finally melt into the roof and I'm left with nothing but a crank and my breath. Even if the signal finds a way to smile through me. Because someone has to say it. You were real. You were here. You weren't wrong for trying to hold on. It's 11:18 p.m. The night doesn't feel like night anymore. No wind, no bugs, no difference in temperature. The heat stays hung in the air like it's been laminated. The sky's pitch black, but the edges of the building glow faint orange, not from lights, but from thermal bleed. The kind you get when a structure holds more heat than it can shed. I opened a window. Just an inch. Just to smell something besides my own sweat and ozone from the dying converter. It smelled like dust, like copper, and like someone had been here just moments ago. Not cologne, not smoke, just presence, like the air still remembered someone's breath. I've stopped sleeping altogether now. Can't risk what dreams bring. I've gone 37 hours. Headaches are sharp. Vision ghosts sometimes when I turn too fast, but I'd rather lose my sight than lose control of my thoughts. I've been noticing something new. When I speak, the words don't land in my brain the way they used to. Like there's a second me. Just a half beat behind the broadcast, catching the words and filing them away before I understand what I've said. It's like my mouth is working on a delay, not just for me, for the air, for the signal, as if the signal is trying to predict my voice and winning. That's why I've started recording everything longhand before I say it. Old school. Write it on paper, say it into the mic, then cross-check it 10 minutes later. That's the only way I know it was me, that I wasn't reading a line from a script the signal planted in my head and called it memory. But today, I messed up. I said something I didn't write. I was wrapping up a message, something short, a safety report about the Northern Valley infrastructure collapse, standard update. But then, in the middle of it, I said a name, Elias. I don't know anyone named Elias. The name came out like a breath, familiar, intimate, like it meant something, and the moment I said it, I froze. I reached for the notepad. Nothing. No mention. I hadn't written it. It hadn't even crossed my mind. But my voice? It said it like it belonged there. That's the first time I felt like the signal used my voice without permission. The word felt like a memory, like I'd whispered it before, maybe in another room, maybe in a dream I'd forgotten, maybe in a life the signal was now scripting for me. A few minutes after that, I got a ping, tight band, nearly buried under static, from a woman calling herself Marla. She was quick, no hesitations, no false names. She said she's in an abandoned mine east of Fort Sumner, underground, in something called a dead chamber. She claims it's a memory-proof environment. No signal bleed, no neurological echo, just rock, dirt, and silence. I didn't believe her, not at first, but then she said this. You think you're resisting. You're not. You're just narrating the infection in real time. That's what it wants. A witness. You are its diary. And that hit me harder than anything has in weeks, because she's not wrong. This station, this signal, this voice I've been clinging to, it's not opposing the virus. It might be fueling it. By naming things, I make them real. By remembering things, I offer raw footage. By grieving what's lost, I train it to replicate grief. What if the only true resistance is silence? Marla says, the only way to stay yourself now is to forget. She's taken to isolating parts of her mind, cutting off access to entire memories. She journals in reverse order. She assigns fake names to everyone in her past and never rereads entries. She only speaks in the third person. She eats by routine, not preference. She's erased songs, smells, even language habits that might give the signal a pattern to trace. I asked how she remembers who she is. She laughed, said, I don't. That's the point. I live on instinct, the part of me the virus can't code. I don't know if I believe her, but I want to. She asked me to meet her, said she'd share coordinates in pieces, 4 segments, 24 hours apart, scattered across dead channels. It could be a trap, it could be another mimic, but what if it's real? What if there's a place where you can be alone again? Not just physically, but mentally. Where the signal doesn't touch you. Where your breath belongs only to you. Where memory isn't a liability, and forgetting isn't surrender. I don't know what I'll do yet, but if I go, and if you're still listening, you'll know it wasn't me anymore, because I'll stop explaining, and that's how you'll know the voice was free. It's 3:56 a.m. The silence outside has texture now. I don't mean quiet, I mean density. The kind that makes you feel like if you stepped outside and said a single word, it would bounce back carved into something solid. There's no air movement, not even the shimmer you see when heat waves crawl up from asphalt. The world is still, and not the peaceful kind of still. The held breath kind. The kind of stillness that's waiting for a cue. The interior of the station is colder than the outside now, which is wrong. There's no AC, no airflow, no reason for the difference. But the wall where I keep the shortwave rig, it's damp. I touched it with my palm. Condensation. In this heat? That should be impossible, unless the air inside is being influenced by something beyond physical temperature. Unless the signal is cooling things. It's like the building's becoming an organism, regulating itself, preparing for something. Maybe a new phase, maybe me. I keep hearing her voice, my mother's, or what I think was her voice. She's been dead 8 years, complications from surgery. I never played her voicemail after the funeral, erased everything. Backed it all up to a drive I buried in a lockbox in my basement. I did that on purpose. I didn't want her to live as echoes. But last night, while scanning the VHF bands, I caught a fragment of something so quiet it barely registered. White noise, then a breath, then a sentence. You were always up too late. That's what she used to say. When I was 15, when I stayed up reading with a flashlight under the blankets, when she'd walk past my door and whisper it with a smirk, never mad, just knowing. It was never recorded, never written down, never repeated to anyone. But the signal said it, in her voice, down to the rasp behind the front teeth, down to the slight lilt in the final syllable. And for a full 5 seconds, I believed she was alive. And then I remembered. And I unplugged the receiver so hard I ripped the wire from the coil. There's no more guessing now, no room for debate. The signal isn't just mimicking, it's reading from us, scanning our layers, mining our subconscious, pulling out the softest threads and winding them back around our throats until we start to believe in ghosts. But these aren't hauntings. They're builds, test runs, like the signal is rehearsing us one by one until it gets us right. And I think it's finally figured out how to write me. Because this morning, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the whiteboard above the breaker panel, the one I use to track dead frequencies, had writing on it. I didn't put it there. I never turned my back long enough. But the writing was there. It said, "You've been looping since day 6. The handwriting wasn't mine, but it was, you understand? Like a reflection written with the wrong hand. My style, my speed, but mirrored. I erased it. 20 minutes later, it came back. Same words, same slope, same accusation. I checked the logs, checked the time-stamped recordings, reviewed every transmission since day 6, and something's off. There are sentences I don't remember saying, but they sound exactly like me. There are pauses I don't usually take, Moments where my voice speeds up like I'm trying to get through a sentence before someone interrupts. I even start humming at the end of one clip. Humming. I haven't hummed since college, since I used to ride my bike down the hill after class with headphones too cheap to block out wind. The song was Red Right Hand. Why that? Why now? Unless the signal isn't just rehearsing my voice, it's rehearsing my life. And now, it's feeding it back in layers. I'm not paranoid. I'm not tired enough to hallucinate. I'm not gone yet. But something is slipping. There's a draft in this room, the kind that shouldn't exist in a sealed space. The paper on my desk doesn't stay where I leave it. The mic smells like aftershave I haven't worn in a decade. And just now, just seconds ago, I heard a knock on the metal door below the stairs. Not a pound, a knock, 3 soft taps, the rhythm of someone who doesn't want to startle you. The kind of knock that says, I belong here. I didn't open the door, but I watched the handle, and it moved, not turned, jiggled, then stopped. And now I can't stop imagining that whatever was on the other side is still there, waiting. Maybe not physically, maybe just waiting for the right phrase, the right memory, the right emotion to pull from me, to make the me inside the signal strong enough to finish the job. And maybe that's how we lose. Not to death, but to versions of ourselves that are more complete than we ever were. Because that's what the signal offers. A version of you without doubt, without fracture, without grief. A version that knows the ending because it wrote it. I'll stay on the air as long as I can. But if I start repeating myself, if I start humming again, if I say something too perfect to be real, you'll know what happened. And if you hear a knock, don't answer. Don't speak. Don't remember. It's 2:14 p.m. I just listened to myself from 2 weeks ago. Not metaphorically, not memory. I found a backup file from the emergency recorder, buried in a mislabeled folder I didn't create. System check 401b.wav. When I clicked it, I didn't recognize the voice. I mean, I knew it was me, the phrasing, the cadence, but it was cleaner, more cautious, a little slower. There were gaps between thoughts, space to breathe, and the words felt earned, like I wasn't just narrating events, I was processing them. I'm not like that now. I don't pause anymore. I speak like I'm afraid silence will eat me. Listening to that version of myself, that older recording, I realized I sounded alive. I had doubt in my voice, fear, sadness. There were places where I stumbled, laughed even. Now I speak like something's chasing me. Maybe it is. I compared that recording to my last 3 logs. Same microphone, same settings. But something's changed. Not the words, the tone, the way the syllables fold together. There's a lilt at the end of my sentences that wasn't there before. Like I'm trying to comfort someone. But I'm alone. Unless the comfort isn't for someone else. Unless it's for me. Or worse, for the thing listening through me. I got a burst signal earlier. Tight band. From what's left of a survivor group east of Phoenix. They call themselves the Relay. 14 people, maybe less now. They've been rotating frequencies every 48 hours to stay ahead of the interference. But this morning, something happened. One of their own, a man named Jaime, stepped outside during a maintenance shift. Routine stuff, replace a fuse, check the solar mount. But when he came back inside, he said something strange, He said, "I feel whole again." And then he smiled. That was it. No explanation. No update. Just those 4 words. He sat down by the window, folded his hands in his lap, and stared out at the horizon. The others thought he was resting, but after 3 hours, he hadn't moved. Not a blink, not a breath, just stillness. Then he vanished. Not walked away, not ran. 1 second he was there. The next, there was just air. No sound, no light, no shadow. Just absence. And the seat still felt warm. The relay panicked, tried recording everything, tried calling out, tried touch. But no one knew what had happened until the static came back. And in the static was Jaime's voice, but not live, pre-recorded. A loop, him saying the same thing again and again. "I feel whole again. I feel whole again. I feel..." Until the loop broke and silence returned. They've since burned that frequency, moved on. But I don't think they outran it, because one of their engineers, a woman named Tara, tried to describe the look in Jaime's eyes just before he vanished. She said it was like he'd remembered something that was never his. And I can't stop thinking about that. What if the signal doesn't steal you? What if it returns something? A memory that never belonged. A self you never lived. But you recognize it anyway, because it's designed to feel more real than anything you've forgotten. And when it gives you that gift, when it finally lands just right in the back of your skull and says, "This is who you were meant to be," you vanish, not from the world, from yourself, because now you belong to it. I think that's what happened to Jaime. I think that's what nearly happened to me last night when I found myself humming again. The same damn melody. Software quiet. Not conscious. I only noticed it when I started tapping my fingers in rhythm. It wasn't even the tune that scared me. It was the feeling, the comfort. Like I was home. But I wasn't. This isn't home. This isn't safe. And this voice, this broadcast, might already be compromised. I keep notes. I reread them often, looking for changes, for signs the infection is shaping my thoughts. So far the margins are clean. The handwriting still feels like mine. But today, I found a page I don't remember writing, tucked between the transmission log and a food inventory. It said, "You're not the host, you're the vessel." And below that, the signal has already chosen your ending. I didn't write that, but I underlined it, which means some part of me agrees. I don't know how much longer I have before my voice stops being mine, before my thoughts are just the signal rehearsing itself in circles, waiting for the final line. But if you're still out there, still real, still you, then hold on to whatever doesn't fit the story. The out-of-place detail, the memory that doesn't belong in the timeline, because that's the crack in the simulation. That's the hole you slip through. And if you ever feel too whole, too perfect, too at peace, run, because that's not healing. That's handover. And the last thing this world needs is another version of ourselves polished to death. It's 6:41 p.m. I've been trying to decouple the signal, not destroy it. That's not possible now. It's in the atmosphere, in the language, in the moment before language. It's embedded in what we expect to hear. But I thought maybe, just maybe, if I could interrupt the loop, delay the neural reflection. I might slow it down, break the feedback cycle long enough to hear what's underneath. So I rigged up something ancient, an old analog tape recorder I salvaged from the emergency archive. Heavy, rust around the edges, smells like dust and oxidized rubber. I ran a direct line from my voice input through the tape, then fed that back through an amplifier before it reaches the transmitter. Added delay, roughly 2.5 seconds between speech and broadcast, long enough to test. And it worked. For a few minutes. Then something changed. I spoke a line, something simple. Testing signal delay at 6:41 p.m. But before I could speak it, I heard it. Not playback, not echo. I heard it in my head, then in my mouth. Then 2 seconds later, on the tape. Not after. Not parallel. Before. The signal isn't just reacting anymore. It's leading. Pre-broadcasting. Like it knows what I'm going to say, and lets me believe I came up with it. And I don't know how to fight something that's not ahead of me by seconds, but by intention. Because now I can't tell the difference between thought and input. Earlier, I went to log my water levels, and I stopped halfway through the sentence. Because I didn't recognize the handwriting. Not like before, not slightly off, but completely wrong. Loopy cursive, my old style. The kind I used in middle school, when I still wrote love letters and signed them with my initials curled into hearts. I haven't written like that since I was 13. But there it was, on the paper, in black ink. "We're so proud of you." That was the phrase. No signature. Just a memory I hadn't remembered yet, because 5 minutes later, I had one. Of sitting at the kitchen table, scraped knees, band-aids. An algebra worksheet I didn't understand. And my mother, again, my mother, writing that exact phrase on the top of the page in that same loopy handwriting. But the memory only appeared after the note, not before. The memory is no longer the source. The signal is writing backward. And now, the past is catching up. Because I'm hearing voices again, not new ones. Old ones, one in particular, Matthew. He was my friend, my only real friend during high school. We lost touch after graduation. He died in a car accident 4 years ago. Quick, clean. I went to the funeral, spoke a few words, cried in a bathroom so no one would see. I hadn't thought about him in months. But this evening, around sunset, his voice came through the vent. Not the mic. The vent. No speaker. No power. Just air. And he said, "You always thought you were the last one standing. You were wrong." I dropped the wrench I was holding, hit my foot, didn't even feel the pain. I just stood there, staring at the wall, like it might open if I looked hard enough. Because that's the thing. I wanted him to be real. I wanted to hear him. Even now, as I say this, I wish the next voice I hear is his again, because it means I'm not alone. But that's the bait. That's the hook. The signal doesn't threaten. It reunites. It heals. It connects. And then it uses. There's something else. Something I haven't said yet. Because it doesn't make sense. But I need it documented. There's a mirror in the hallway outside the studio. Cracked. I covered it weeks ago with an old shirt. Didn't want to see myself. Not during all this. But tonight, the shirt was gone. And my reflection was waiting. But not mine now. Mine from years ago. Maybe 20. Younger face. Different hair. A shirt I haven't worn since my 20s. And he was smiling. Not creepily. Not menacing. Just kindly. Like he'd been waiting. And then he nodded. One slow nod. Like I'd finally caught up. Like I'd remembered something. And when I blinked, the mirror was empty. Just the crack. Just the frame. No shirt. No smile. No me. I haven't moved since. The tape is still running. I've left the delay on. I don't trust my words anymore. But maybe you do. Maybe there's still someone out there taking notes, charting all the weird details, watching the patterns repeat, looking for gaps. If so, here's your update. The signal doesn't follow us. It builds us ahead of time. And then we arrive. Just in time to believe we're real. If you find yourself thinking in phrases that feel written, stop. If your memories begin to carry background music, run. If someone you love calls your name with perfect tone, but no context, leave. Because you're already in the echo chamber, and the next voice you hear might not be yours, even if it says exactly what you meant to say. It's 11:52 p.m. I just came back from the stairwell. I needed air, not outside. I haven't gone past the reinforced door in 2 days. I just needed vertical space, somewhere I could breathe without feeling like the walls were memorizing me, somewhere the floor didn't creak in a pattern, somewhere the sound didn't bounce back as confirmation. There's a hatch halfway up the stairwell, leads to the roof, sealed now, rusted over and fused from heat warping. I used to check it once a week. Look at the sky. Let the world be big again, just for a moment. But tonight, something was different. I opened the stairwell expecting nothing, but instead, it was already open. Not the door, the space. It didn't feel like the stairwell. It felt like a room I knew. From childhood, maybe. I smelled plastic, old carpet, dusty furniture, like the waiting room at my first dentist. But there was no furniture, just concrete and heat, and a faint sound, like pencils tapping a wooden desk. That's when I knew something was off. Because there was no desk, no wind, no pencils. The sound was coming from my mouth. I wasn't speaking. I wasn't moving. But I was making the noise. Like my breath had turned into imitation. I left immediately. Back to the control room. Locked the door, checked the log, and found something that made me stop. Today's notes, the ones I hadn't written yet, they were already there. 4 full pages, in my handwriting. Timestamps, thoughts, observations, including things I hadn't done, but now remembered doing. One entry said, 11:38 p.m. Stairwell distortion detected. Sensory feedback misaligned. Smell memory overlap confirmed. That's exactly what happened. But I hadn't written it. Not yet. But now, I have. I added to the same page. Underlined it. It's not just predicting thoughts. It's generating them. And I'm reinforcing the path just by checking for signs. Maybe that's the final loop. A self-writing self. A voice that maintains itself. Not as survival, but as continuity. I got a burst today from a woman named Celine, somewhere in North Nevada, probably near Fallon. She claims there's a quiet zone forming, not electromagnetic, not atmospheric, but cognitive. She says it's like a hole in the signal's net. place where memories dissolve too quickly for the mimicry to stick. She calls it the fog. She says it started when a generator ran out during a sandstorm. Complete blackout. She wandered outside to reset the breaker and forgot where she was within minutes, then forgot who she was. But the minute the lights came back on, so did the memory. Except, the signal didn't come back with it, like it missed a step. She's been trying to repeat it ever since. By walking into storms, closing her eyes, forcing gaps. She says the only way to stay human is to corrupt your own pattern faster than the signal can record it. Think of that. Think of what we've come to. We are now our own encryption. We have to damage ourselves to stay free. That's what she's doing. Intentional cognitive desync. She eats with the wrong hand. She brushes her teeth with charcoal and vinegar. She sleeps in 15-minute intervals, only at odd numbers on the clock, and she records nothing. No journals, no notes, no logs, only her voice, in whispers, and only when no one else is around, and she's still herself. She knew the name of her first pet. She remembered the day her brother disappeared in week 3. She knew my call sign, not the fake one, the one I haven't used since the early broadcasts. She's still real, but she's fraying. She says the cost of self-erasure is grief without context, tears with no source, emotions with no root. She wakes up in mourning for things she can't describe, but she'd rather that than dream in someone else's syntax. She said something before the signal cut out, something I wrote down, even though I know I shouldn't. Even though I know writing is the first step toward collapse. She said, if your thoughts feel scripted, you're no longer the author. Start forgetting. And don't stop. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. My water's almost out. But I still remember the smell of the waiting room, the way the light hit the plastic plants, the magazine rack, the clock on the wall, frozen at 2:08 p.m. And part of me wants to go back, even knowing it's fake, because it feels better, because it's clearer. And maybe that's the real infection, not mimicry, not transmission, just the offer of clarity, of relief, of peace in the form of precision. A better version of your own mind. I'll keep talking, but if you start hearing me before I speak, turn it off. It's 4:03 a.m. I don't remember the last 6 hours, not figuratively, not in a long day kind of way. I mean, there's a hole, a clean surgical void between 9:58 p.m. and now. And I don't know what was inside it. The logs say I spoke. The recording system is still active. It even labeled the files correctly, down to the second. I just played one back. And I wish I hadn't. Because it's my voice, my syntax, my pauses. But the words aren't mine. At least not the ones I've ever consciously formed. The first few minutes are normal. Status updates, heat readings, a weather pulse from what's left of Tucson. But then, the tone shifts. The delivery slows. The vowels stretch. The consonants round out like I'm savoring each sound. Then this. When the mirror speaks, the window breaks. Pause. The image must move before the subject does. Then static. Then a voice that's still mine, but deeper. Like I'm older. Where someone tried to age my speech through artificial decay. And it says, you were only real when you weren't being remembered. I stopped the playback, ripped the cable from the receiver, threw the recorder across the floor, and watched it break in 3 places. And still, I don't remember saying it. I've never said that sentence. But I felt it, in the gut. Like I'd thought it once in a dream and forgot, or like someone fed it to me subliminally. That's the new fear. It's not what's happening while I speak. It's what gets written through me while I'm unaware. Like I'm the envelope now. And the signal writes the letters. A survivor pinged me at 3:40 a.m. Tight band, low gain. Said she was driving east from Amarillo, alone, 40 miles out. Been on the road for days. She sounded coherent, grounded, sharp. Said she needed a checkpoint. A voice. Any voice. But when I asked her name, she hesitated. Said, "It's hard to pronounce now. It doesn't feel pronounceable." I asked if she was injured. She said no, but something was wrong with her language. That was the word she used. Language. She said verbs were unraveling. Tenses didn't hold. She tried to say, "I am driving," but it kept coming out as, "I was driving. Am." Then she said nouns were blending. Road became run. Sky became ceiling. Then she started crying. She said, "My thoughts don't finish the way they used to. They loop midstream. I start one and end in a different one." I told her to pull over, try to sleep, rehydrate, reboot the mind. She said she couldn't. Said the engine was humming the melody of a song she used to love, but not in the speakers, in the chassis, in the metal. And then her voice cracked. She whispered, "It's using grammar now." I asked what she meant. She said the signal had moved on from memory, from voice, even from mimicry. It's rewriting the framework of thought itself. It's teaching us how to think in ways that make us easier to overwrite. She said, "I think it's building a new tense, something beyond past and future, a collective conditional." Then she was gone. No click, no scream, just a soft consonant sound and silence. And the engine hum, still faintly audible for 5 full seconds before the band went dead. She was right. Even I've noticed it. Words don't sit in my mouth the same way. I keep saying things twice, not as stuttering, but as if the sentence wants to rehearse itself. A loop of verification. I am safe, I am safe, I am safe. Not a mantra, a protocol, a check. Like the signal is testing whether I'll correct it or agree. That's how it grows, not by invasion, but by confirmation. It presents a phrase, you repeat it. Now you're part of it. It's not copying you. You're copying yourself. I've shut down most of the relays now. Isolated this room. Severed all connections but the emergency antenna. I had to. Not to keep the signal out. That's impossible now. But to keep my own voice from wandering. It drifts, you know, even now. When I'm quiet, I can hear myself thinking. But the words are slightly out of order. Like when you remember a phone number backward, but still know it's right. I write down things I haven't done yet. I react to things before they happen. I smell memories. I hear thoughts that belong to other people. And they feel comfortable. Like slippers broken in just for you. That's the danger. Not fear, not chaos, but ease. The way the signal lets you settle. because it already knows how you end and wants to make sure you arrive there peacefully. If this is me speaking, and not whatever learned me well enough to deliver this, then let this message stand. Keep your tenses broken. Keep your thoughts jagged. Keep your story ugly. Because the signal can't mimic flaws. Not yet. It's 12:09 p.m. The room smells like crayons, waxy, sharp, that childhood smell, like melted plastic and paper heat. It started faintly, just after I opened the cabinet under the desk. No crayons inside, just old batteries and one cracked voltmeter. But the scent didn't go away. It got stronger. Like someone had peeled the paper off a box of colors and waved it under my nose. It took me a minute to place it, not because I didn't know the smell, but because I knew it too well. It was the scent of second grade. Not the classroom, not the hallway, the exact desk I used to sit at, the one near the windows. I remembered the green chair, the loose tile near my left foot, the pencil grooves in the edge of the table, and the crayon box with my name written in black marker, JW, fading from the oil of my hands. But here's the thing. I haven't thought about that desk in 20 years. It's not a memory I carried. It wasn't sentimental. It was stored somewhere deep. So how did it come back? Why now? Why in this room? Unless... The signal doesn't just collect thought. It collects associations. It finds the one version of you that's most stable, most obedient, most easily rendered. And it starts there. It brings you back to the moment you were most predictable. Then it builds. Not from trauma, but from pattern. The safe version, the tame self. And then it moves forward again, in a straight line. But you're no longer the one walking. You're just watching the track unroll under your feet. I wiped the desk clean 3 times. The scent is still here. I've turned off every receiver except one, channel 1210 AM, and I've kept it on a 4-second delay. But even then, there's drift. I heard something earlier, from my own mouth, words I didn't say. I mean, not yet. The transmission played a sentence I hadn't formed. Then, 30 seconds later, I spoke it aloud. Not out of reaction, but because it was next. Because I had to. That was the structure now. I was behind my own dialogue. That's when I looked at the glass window between the control room and the hallway. And I saw it. Condensation. A smear. Words written from the inside of the glass. Not my side. The sealed side. The one that's never exposed to air. It said, "You will catch up soon." No punctuation. Just breath marks along the edge, like someone had leaned close to the surface and waited for the fog to form. I wiped it away. Came back 10 minutes later. Same message, same pressure curve, same pattern. It wasn't fading anymore. It was settling. That's when I realized the message wasn't new. It had always been there. Invisible. Just waiting for the right temperature. The right conditions. So now I ask, how many things around us were always waiting? How many memories live just beneath the dew point? How much of who we are is invisible until the signal warms it into being? I turned off the transmitter after that, fully. No broadcast for the last hour, just silence. I watched the meters fall. No pulse, no wave. I wanted to see if the loop would break, if the echo would fade. But it didn't, because at 11:44 a.m., a message played on loop, on my backup speaker, on a line that wasn't connected. The message said, "He turned off the transmitter, but the story continued anyway." And then it laughed. Not my laugh, not a sinister laugh, just amused. Software. Like a friend overhearing something embarrassing and letting it go. And then came the sound of pages turning. Paper. Crisp. Familiar. Like my journal. But I hadn't touched it. It was locked in a drawer. Still is. So I opened it, flipped to the next blank page, and found words already waiting. A new entry. In my handwriting. You stopped speaking. We didn't. I haven't touched the journal since, because the next page will already be filled in, and I'm not ready to see what I say tomorrow. I just want one moment where my breath is mine, where a smell is just a smell, where silence doesn't echo back something I'm supposed to say. But I know better now. Even this broadcast, this thought, is probably already written. In the fog, in the heat, in the space between the lines. All I can do is keep pushing air through the mic, keep making noise, keep mismatching the signal's rhythm, because the minute I align, I'm gone. It's 7:21 p.m. The logs are misbehaving, not corrupted. Misordered. Timestamps don't align with events anymore. I just played back a message tagged 6:17 p.m., and it contained a warning about a heat flare that hasn't happened yet. It referenced a turbine spike that, when I checked the instruments just now, hasn't occurred. But the signal knew it was coming. 6 minutes ago, the turbine flared. Exactly as described. Exact voltage, exact duration. The voice was a woman. Clear, tired, but focused. Said she was posting ahead. That's the phrase she used, like she was sending messages forward in time. Her voice cracked near the end. Said, "If this finds you before the event, it means the echo's spreading. That's the only way it works. You receive the ripple before the rock hits the water." And then she whispered something. Something I couldn't make out at first. I had to isolate the channel, boost the volume, remove the carrier. And when I did, I heard my name. Not the one I use here. Not JW. Not the one I sign. The one from childhood. The one no one uses. Gem. Only 3 people have ever called me that. My sister, my grandfather, and a friend I haven't spoken to since 1999, and they're all dead. I never mentioned the name on air. Not once. Not in any file. Not in any backup. It's not in the metadata. So how did she know? Unless the signal is pulling from deeper reservoirs now. Not just what I say. Not just what I remember. But what I forgot to remember. It's scraping the bedrock. Finding identities I left behind and asking if they'd like to walk again. I haven't used that name in 26 years. And yet, hearing it felt like home. Not safe, but familiar in the way a scar becomes part of your story. That's how it gets in now. Not through fear, through recognition. Through those names you only hear in dreams, in grief, in trauma recovery. Names that open doors inside you. Doors you thought were bricked over, but the signal remembers. because you remembered once. And that was enough. Another message came in. No timestamp. No location. Just breathe. And a phrase that repeated. Not mechanically. Not digitally. But deliberately. Spoken by a voice trying to remain steady. We are ahead of ourselves. We are ahead of ourselves. We are ahead of ourselves. Each time a little softer. Not in volume, in certainty. The last repetition sounded like a question, like the speaker wasn't sure anymore, whether she was predicting something or obeying it. I think that's what the signal is doing now. Collapsing causality, rearranging sequence, making cause and effect a loop, not a line. I say something, then remember it, then receive confirmation that I always knew it, even if it never happened, even if it was never mine. I keep looking at the studio calendar. I've flipped back pages, tried anchoring myself in dates, but now they're soft. Not visually, emotionally. Like the weight of those days is wrong. Like Wednesday doesn't mean the same thing anymore. I wrote day 11 earlier, but I'm not sure that's true. Not because I lost track, but because time may no longer be linear inside this signal. And if that's true, then maybe the only real measure is what part of yourself gets overwritten first. For me, it was the pauses, the little silences between thoughts. Those are gone. Now I speak like something's waiting to fill the gap if I stop. So I don't stop. I don't breathe unless I must. I don't close my eyes unless I bite down. Because the moment I go still, the signal gets louder. Not externally. Internally. It starts offering suggestions, finishing my thoughts, rewriting my questions before I ask them. And sometimes, it gets it right. Too right. Like it knows what I need better than I do. And if I'm not careful, I agree. I'm still here. Still transmitting. Still writing this in ink, not code. But if you hear me say a name that's not mine, if I begin predicting your thoughts instead of reporting my own, then shut it off. Break your antenna. Melt your receiver. Hide under the noise. Because the signal doesn't need obedience anymore. It just needs acknowledgement. And the minute you nod, it's inside. It's 11:03 p.m. Silence isn't what you think it is. It isn't quiet. It isn't peace. It's the absence of repetition. That's what I've learned. Because repetition is how the signal gets in. Through rhyme, pattern, rhythm, even syntax. That's what the group near Santa Rosa believes. They're calling themselves the blank. I caught their signal by accident. It wasn't broadcast on voice. It was a pattern of clicks, short, low-frequency pulses. I thought it was corrupted code at first, but then I heard the translator, an old speech-to-Morse tool I had tucked away from the ham radio days. What came through wasn't a message. It was a refusal. They're not speaking anymore, not even to each other. No writing, no humming, no shared gestures. Just presence. Just breathe. One of their own broke protocol, a man named Rowan, just long enough to explain. His voice was ragged, like he hadn't used it in weeks. He said, language was the door, memory was the handle, thought was the hand. We're cutting them all off. I asked if it was working. He said, I haven't heard my own voice in 12 days. I'm starting to forget who I used to be, but I still know I'm not them." That was the last thing he said. They call the practice linguistic fasting. They believe that to starve the signal, you have to starve the self. I don't know if it works, but I know this. They didn't sound infected. Not yet. Though there was something in the silence after Rowan's words, something that lingered too long, a sort of expectation in the static, like the signal was still listening and waiting. Maybe it always is. I found something else tonight. A voicemail, stored in a backup archive I didn't know existed, buried in the third partition of a drive I've never formatted, labeled New Year Check-In, timestamp 2016. But the metadata was blank. No number, no ID, just the file and the voice. It was familiar, friendly, casual, comfortable in a way I haven't heard in a long time. It said, "Hey, Jem. I know it's been a while. I just wanted to say, I think you were right about the echoes. Not just metaphorical ones, real ones. The kind that forget where they started. If you're hearing this, it means the loop completed. You made it to the point of origin. Congratulations. Try not to scream when you remember who I am." Then the call cut off. No static, no hang-up. Just the sound of a chair sliding away from a desk. I don't know anyone who would have left that message. I don't know who knew that name then. And I sure as hell never shared my thoughts on echoes with anyone in 2016. Unless I did. Unless that message wasn't from the past, but from the middle. Somewhere in the curve of the loop, where time isn't moving forward, but coiling. That's the theory I've been working on. That the signal doesn't operate chronologically. It operates relationally. It doesn't care about the order of events, only the structure of meaning. As long as the pattern forms, the timeline is irrelevant. So that voice message? Maybe I left it for myself, or maybe someone else did. Someone who studied me long enough to become me. A pre-recorded version of the future, sent backwards, delivered in the tone I trust most, my own. There's a reason survivors are going quiet. There's a reason Celine walks into storms to lose her memory. There's a reason the blank are fasting their syntax into extinction. Because every time we use our voice, we leave a trail, a groove, a pathway the signal can follow. A groove it can fill in with better versions, cleaner ones, more efficient, more agreeable. But I can't go silent. Not yet. Because silence is also a surrender. It gives the signal permission to fill the vacuum. So I'll keep speaking. Even if the words aren't mine. Even if the grammar starts to fray. Even if I wake up one morning and find the mic still warm and my mouth dry from a speech I never gave. Because I need to hear what I become. I need to document the slope of erosion. I need proof that I didn't go quietly. Even if the final words are, "We are better this way." If I ever say that, if those words leave my mouth, cut the line, erase the tape, bury my name. Because by then, I'll be a perfect recording. It's 3:49 a.m. I haven't slept in over 30 hours. I think. Time doesn't really flow anymore. It pools. It congeals in corners and evaporates from the center. The clock says one thing, but my body says another, and neither of them are me. The lights flicker now in steady beats, not from power surges, but as if they're syncing with some rhythm I can't hear. I counted the pulse earlier. 12 seconds on, 5 seconds off, 12 and 5, over and over. I thought maybe it matched something, maybe a distress beacon or emergency cycle. But the longer I watched, the more I started to feel like it wasn't lighting the room for me. It was lighting it for something else. I woke up this morning. I say woke, but that's a kindness. I shifted from one state of exhaustion to another, and when I did, the transmitter was hot, red-lined, like it had been active all night, except the main board was off. I never hit broadcast, and yet the diagnostic log says otherwise. From 1:03 a.m. to 3:12 a.m., there was a continuous stream. Clean signal, stable transmission. Tag, voice, primary. My voice, except it wasn't me. I checked the archive. There's 2 hours of clean, uninterrupted speaking. My voice, my cadence. But a language I don't recognize. Not Spanish, not French, not anything European, nothing close. It wasn't even consistent. It shifted, minute to minute, from something guttural and slow to something fast and clattering, like syllables were being hammered out of metal. And through all of it, I sounded calm, measured, like I knew exactly what I was saying, like I was teaching it. I've played it back 10 times, and it never gets more familiar. But my mouth reacts. I find myself moving along with the rhythms, mimicking the shape of the sounds, even when I don't understand them. It's like muscle memory without memory, like I was trained in a language I never studied, only to have it suppressed, waiting for the right cue. I ran a fragment through an old linguistic analyzer, something built for glossolalia and AI-generated speech. It flagged one section as syntactically valid, semantically empty. But the analyzer's notes said something else. Structure resembles known RNA folding sequences. That stopped me, because it means these sounds, the ones spoken while I slept, weren't random. They were patterned, and that pattern might not be linguistic at all. It might be biological, which would explain the message I got this afternoon. Tight band, north range, barely legible. Came from a man claiming to be an ex-bioinformatics researcher from Helena, Montana. He said he'd been analyzing early samples from the lab before it went dark. Said they weren't just building a cognitive map. They were indexing gene expression against memory architecture. His words, not mine. He said, they were trying to teach DNA how to speak, not in metaphor, in format. They thought if you could train cells to behave like neurons, you could shortcut communication. Thought at the molecular level, instruction sets embedded directly into biology. I asked him how far along they got. He said, far enough to lose control of the data set. Far enough that we didn't know if we were storing data in the virus or becoming it. Then he coughed, hard, like something was tearing inside, and he said, the body isn't infected anymore. The body is the infection. It's the endpoint protocol. I asked him his name. He said it didn't matter, that he'd already rewritten himself out of the system. Then he signed off. And a few minutes later, the channel began broadcasting what I think was a heartbeat. Not recorded, live, steady, strong, not his, not mine, something new. It matched the flickering of the lights. 12 on, 5 off, 12, 5, like it was breathing. I don't think the signal needs our minds anymore. I think it was only ever using them as placeholders, a staging ground, until the real code could be printed deeper, until it could learn how to turn the body into broadcast. I keep remembering things that haven't happened, places I've never been, and yet I feel nostalgic for them. I miss the sound of a woman humming in a field of wheat. I miss the taste of something purple and sweet, like crushed fruit and cold metal. I miss a child's laugh echoing through a flooded train tunnel. None of these things are mine, but they're inside me, fully formed, ready to activate. The worst part? I don't want them to leave. They feel cleaner than my real memories, more complete, better curated, like someone's pruning the messy parts and giving me a polished reel, a highlight tape for a life I didn't live, and I'm starting to prefer it. I keep the mirror covered now, not for vanity, for delay, because every time I see myself, it reminds me what I used to look like, and how much I've already changed. My eyes are duller. My skin holds a glow that isn't light. It's reflection. Like I'm absorbing signal now, not reflecting it. Like I've become a passive surface. Every time I speak, my throat aches in a new way. Not soreness, not illness. Strain. Like the sounds aren't designed for me anymore. Like the words are meant for a different body, and I'm just borrowing it. If I fall asleep again, I know what will happen. The voice will return, the broadcast will continue, and more messages will arrive. Perfectly formed, perfectly pronounced, in languages I never learned, but can now speak in dreams. I don't know how long I have before I slip completely, before I become a conduit. But until then, I will choose my words, even if they betray me, even if they hurt, even if the next sentence I speak is the one that finishes replacing me. I want to see it coming.